I just jump right in here. California Governor Gavin Newsom is about to address the nation. He's about to make a major announcement regarding the map fight, regarding California's plan to push back against the Trump administration. This is going to be very exciting. Let me make sure you guys can all see it okay. He's about to speak now, so I'm just going to let this play. People are going to trickle in. I'm sure he's not going to speak first, but let's take a listen.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Get this started. I'm proud to be here with many of our legislative colleagues. I'm proud to be here with Pro Tem McGuire and, of course, our governor, Mr. Gavin Newsom. This is a dangerous moment for our country. And we are here to meet that moment as Californians, as legislators. You know, President Trump doesn't believe in our democratic system. And it's clear that he'll do whatever it takes to hold onto power. That's what we saw on January 6th. He couldn't handle losing. So he sent a violent mob.
By the way, don't think that Donald Trump isn't going to use ICE and National Guard to intimidate voters at the polls. I just spoke about that on social media today, too.
What happened yesterday in Texas is the same dangerous playbook. His MAGA allies in that state just gave themselves 5 more House seats at Trump's order. They want to rig the system so that there's no way Republicans can lose in the 2026 midterm elections. Let's call it for what it is. Donald Trump and Republicans don't want to be held accountable by voters. Not in California, not anywhere, actually, in this country. They don't want to be held accountable for cutting Medicare, Medicaid. They don't want to be held accountable for reckless tariffs that are raising prices at the grocery store every single day, and on many other goods. They don't want to be held accountable for illegal ICE raids that are terrorizing our neighborhoods.
True. Very true.
They don't want to be held accountable for the corruption that sees Donald Trump, his family, his closest friends raking millions of dollars while everyone else struggles to get by in this country. The list goes on and on and on. Of course, Donald Trump doesn't want to be held accountable for his failures in this next election. That's why he is trying to rig it.
It's obvious to anybody with
Mr. President,
eyes and ears and a mouth.
Here in California, we are going to hold you accountable for your failures. And we will do whatever it takes to preserve American democracy and ensure that voters can still let you know in 2026 what they think of your job performance. And this bill is a temporary measure in response to an urgent threat. Californians can see that threat. Why? Because we are living through the consequences of Trump's policies every single day. And today, we are giving every Californian the opportunity to say no to Donald Trump's power grab and to stand up for our people, for our state, and for our democracy. And with that, I want to invite up here Senate Pro Tem Mike McGuire.
This is a big deal, folks. This is a big deal.
Good afternoon. I want to take a moment to acknowledge Speaker Rivas. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'll continue to say it. He is one of the best in the nation. We are so grateful that he is helping lead California, and I'm grateful to call him a partner and a friend. And thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for all your work. I want to acknowledge the governor who has had the backbone to be able to stand up against Donald Trump, one of the few. And accountability is coming, thanks to California. I also want to acknowledge the senators, the assembly members who have moved this historic legislation forward today. And we are here this afternoon because we're putting our faith in our fellow Californians to do the sacred duty to walk into the voting booth, sit at their kitchen table, and do their best to do the right thing. Cast their vote in one of the most consequential elections that we will have in our lifetime. And let's be honest, let's get through the rhetoric. We all know we wouldn't be here in this situation if it weren't for the nefarious actions of Republican leaders in Texas
They literally held somebody
and their
captive.
boss, Donald Trump.
He was literally held captive.
Actions of
I'm a little
Republicans
behind.
in
Let me make sure
Texas
I'm
that have
live,
now
too.
been compounded. How
This is
we
live
got
now.
here. We got here because of Greg Abbott, Republican leaders in Texas, and their boss, Donald Trump. They started all of this. And sometimes in life, you have to stand for the greater good, even though you may lose your job as an elected leader. Sometimes you have to tell your boss no. You have to do something constructive, do everything in your power to ensure free and fair elections. And that's what Democrats did today here in California. And certainly you have to do more than vote against redistricting reforms the way Republicans have year after year after year. Their votes are public. They have voted against the vast majority of independent redistricting reforms advanced in this legislature over this past decade. You know, it is offensive to be able to see these sham lawsuits that Republican leaders in California are advancing. We called it the Scaramucci of the lawsuits in the last 48 hours. The Supreme Court rejected it.
By the way, Newsom's going to speak
And it's
after a
offensive
few
because their
speakers.
brethren,
That's according to his team.
are literally tracking elected leaders with state troopers, calling in the FBI, locking legislators in the chambers, and dragging a female legislator out of the bathroom just simply because she didn't have permission to go. Here is, I think, all of our concern. We've seen this story play out in history. The hypocrisy today may save them for today, but it won't save their hides tomorrow. Because the secret police and the Mar-a-Lago goons, they're going to find a way and a reason to come after them as well.
I like that.
Just like
Mar-a-Lago
they're doing
goons. I think we should start
Democratic
saying that more.
mayors and leaders across this nation.
They're essentially
All
just
of
a
us
group
support
of thugs.
independent
If you think about
redistricting
it,
here in
Donald Trump,
California
Stephen
and every
Miller,
state in this union.
they're all gangsters,
One thing that
but
we
not
do
in a good
not
way.
support is unilateral disarmament when the fairness of the 2026 election is being threatened. You know, other states may want to play games. California is the only state committed to fairness whose potential redistricting goes away the minute others drop theirs. I'm going to end it right here with this. Today was more than drawing lines on a map. It was about drawing a line in the sand to stop Texas, to stop Donald Trump from rigging this election. And the stakes are so high for
I'm going to go live right now on TikTok too, so everyone can hear
millions
this.
are going to lose health care. Our families will lose health care. Fire assistance will continue to be leveraged for millions across this state. People are going to continue to be snatched up off the street. Public education funding is going to dry up, and the governor will talk about a recent Supreme Court ruling that's going to hurt this state for years to come. One of the main reasons I think I voted for today is because this package of bills, the person that's going to be impacted the most is going to be waiting for me tonight at our kitchen table to tell me about his first week of school. My son, 4.5, started TK this week. Today's vote, regardless of what Republicans may say, today's vote is not about politics. Today's vote is about protecting people. It's about protecting this state, protecting our progress and everything that we stand for. It's about protecting the future, ensuring fairness, and trusting the voters. And I want to take a moment to say thank you to Governor Gavin Newsom for his leadership, for his tenacity, for his backbone. Can we please give him a round of applause?
Thank you.
Here comes the governor.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To all of the leaders that are assembled here today, thank you for an outstanding job. Thank you for your faith and devotion to this larger cause, democracy that I think should unite all of us, regardless of our political party and political stripes. Let me just briefly reinforce, because I'm eager to sign a bill that no other governor in U.S. history has ever signed.
He's going to sign it right
bill,
now.
That will put the maps in front of the voters. We will be the first state in U.S. history to, in the most democratic way, submit to the people of our state the ability to determine their own maps. That simply has not been done.
That's the difference, by the way, folks. When you hear Greg Abbott saying, well, Governor Newsom's trying to cheat in California, that is unbelievable. The audacity to say something like that. Of course, these people have no morals. They are just beyond compromise at this point. But Newsom is putting it to the people. He is putting it to Californians in November. He's giving us the opportunity to vote on it. So let's continue listening to the governor here.
But I want to first just briefly back up and pick up a little bit on what the speaker and the pro tem said, and just remind everybody what they reminded you that need to be reminded, all of us again, of how we got here. We got here because the President of the United States is struggling. We got here because the President of the United States is one of the most unpopular presidents in U.S. history. We got here because he recognizes that he will lose the election. Congress will go back into the hands of the Democratic Party next November. We got here because of his failed policies. Those are being exposed hour by hour, reinforced today by Walmart announcing they'll be raising prices because of the tax increases, because of the tariffs. Reminded every day by a slowing economy, growing mistrust, distrust all across this nation, across the board. He is failing. He recognized that, and that's why he made a phone call to Greg Abbott asking for 5 seats.
This is just like when he made a phone call to Georgia asking for 11,000 votes. It's the exact same thing, only it's a few years later, and he's doing it in anticipation of losing this time. He already knows he's set for a landslide loss in the midterm elections. Just think about it. How are you going to win the midterm elections after kicking nearly 20 million Americans off of their health care while still adding nearly $4 trillion to the national debt? You can claim, oh, we kicked all those people off health care, but we saved money on the national debt, but you made that more expensive. And then you could say, oh, well, we gave everyone health care, but it still cost us a lot of money. You did both things wrong. You fucked up twice.
Win by playing by traditional sets of rules. He plays by no rules. I remind you all the time, it's not the rule of law, it's the rule of dawn. And we're standing up to that. We're responding to that. They fired the first shot, Texas. We wouldn't be here had Texas not done what they just did. Donald Trump didn't do what he just did.
By the way, does this mean Newsom should automatically be the Democratic nominee for president? Absolutely not. There's going to be a primary election. We're going to figure out who's going to be the best leader for the Democratic Party. And hopefully it's somebody that speaks to real progressive values, somebody that's going to stand up for workers and somebody that's going to stop funding overseas wars. Is Newsom going to prove that he's going to be that guy? We'll have to see. But this is what's relevant to right now. Newsom is actually leading a tangible fight against Donald Trump. He's actually doing something to resist what the far-right extremists are doing by redistricting California's voting maps, and he's putting it to the vote of the people. He's asking Californians for their vote. He's not just doing what Texas Governor Greg Abbott is doing, which is basically just dictating what's going to happen in the midterms.
He went so far as to follow up and say that he didn't just want those 5 seats. He said he's quote unquote entitled to those 5 seats. Just pause and reflect on that. Everything should have just stopped there. President of the United States claiming he's entitled to 5 seats. That should put chills up your spine. Every Republican, not just Democrat and Independent, every American. Those enduring values that we celebrate, just celebrated 249 years, the best of the Roman Republic, Greek democracy, the rule of law, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty. What we'll celebrate, will we? Next year, the 250th anniversary. Masked men at the site of the Japanese were interned and bussed in Little Tokyo last week in Los.
Folks, I was there. That's where I interviewed Governor Gavin Newsom. It was at the Democracy Center in Little Tokyo, which is a neighborhood near downtown Los Angeles. And while Newsom was giving a speech to the public, to American citizens, ICE agents conveniently showed up outside to intimidate the press, to scare people walking into the event, to make their presence known. Don't think that's just a coincidence. They weren't just there by happenstance. LA is a massive, massive county. They could have been anywhere on that given day. Their actual chief or leader or whatever, that Nazi-looking scumbag, he was there too. trying to scare people. Somebody got up in his face and he's like, we're cleaning up Los Angeles because the politicians here won't do so. No, you Nazi inbred. You belong in alligator Alcatraz because you're terrorizing people. You're rounding up anybody who happens to be brown or happens to speak Spanish. But yeah, Newsom is calling out this fucked up behavior because absolutely they were there to try and send a message. And now Newsom, I guarantee you, he's going to say how Donald Trump is going to use ICE and he's going to use the National Guard to try and intimidate people at the ballot box. Don't think that he's not going to pull this. There are real possibilities that Donald Trump is going to try and scare people from going to the polls. Imagine if you're Hispanic, even if you're an American citizen, you're worried that you show up to the ballot box and somebody's going to harass you and profile you because of what you look like, because of who you are. That's a real threat.
Los Angeles were sent right there in front of the Democracy Center as we kicked off this effort. That's a preview of things to come all across the United States of America. Mark my word, just as we let folks know what was going to happen in other cities, what is happening in Washington, D.C., we said 2 months ago, Los Angeles is a preview of things to come with the federalization of the National Guard.
It is. Even today, Donald Trump said they're going to clean up D.C. and then they're going to move on to other cities. And don't think for a second that when the midterms come, he's not going to have ICE agents stationed at major voting booths across the nation. You don't think he's going to have ICE agents in places like Los Angeles and Phoenix and Tempe, Arizona, and Austin, Texas, and places in Florida to scare black and brown people from showing up to vote. And he's going to have the National Guard in some places too, because he's going to say these cities are overrun with crime. Well, why don't we just have a few of them stationed at these voting places? Imagine if you're concerned about being profiled, if you're concerned about being harassed. You could be an American citizen. You could be a citizen born here, or you could have been naturalized. You're not going to show up to one of these places because you know that these ICE Gestapo agents can just round you up and send you to a concentration camp even though you've committed no crime. There's no chance to prove your innocence because according to them, you're guilty until proven innocent. That's going to happen, or at least that's going to be a threat that Donald Trump is going to try and pull because he's going to be desperate because he knows he's likely set for a landslide loss.
Militarization of the streets of America. And I'll remind you, Donald Trump never sent the military active.
Somebody just said ICE doesn't go after citizens. ICE absolutely does go after citizens. They've arrested U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens have been sent to some of these concentration camps. And by the way, if you don't think that's happening, you should study up. You should pay attention to what's really going on because it's happening everywhere. It just happened here in Los Angeles. They just arrested a U.S. citizen, a pregnant woman. They arrested her, kidnapped her, took her in a van. Her status currently unknown. But if you think that's funny, you're like, oh, this is so funny, huh? Trump, liberal tears, whatever. First of all, I'm not a liberal. Second of all, this is not the United States of America if you support pregnant women who are citizens getting kidnapped and abducted by ICE agents. That's fucking disgusting. That's pathetic. That is so below the pale of what American society should be, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Duty military in his first term, or now even his second term, anywhere overseas, he sent them to a United States city. They remain federalized National Guard, interestingly, through Election Day. $175 billion in the bill that was just signed to reinforce the ranks of ICE, Homeland Security, for what is increasingly becoming self-evident to anyone with eyes wide open and any level of objectivity, a private army.
It literally is. Okay. People are debating right now online. They're like, well, Newsom's not a real leftist. He's not a real progressive. Therefore, he's not going to be the nominee. We're not talking about that. Nobody's saying right now that Newsom should become president. But he is the only Democrat who is finally speaking on behalf of the American people and saying what anybody with eyes and ears can see with objective facts, that Donald Trump is using ICE as a private army. He's using the National Guard as a private army. He's doing something that no president has done, and he is trying to use them as a secret police, essentially, going after political rivals. They arrested the mayor of of Newark. This is absolutely disgusting. This is something that you see in places like North Korea, something that you saw in Germany in the 40s, and now we see it here in the United States. Donald Trump, private army, folks, private army, and he's going to try and intimidate voters. That is what Newsom is hitting on. That is why he has to fight back right now.
Donald Trump, owing an oath only to him, not the Constitution of the United States. You just heard from the Speaker that vote-in-mail ballots are being threatened by the President of the United States. 80% of Californians, no coincidence, 80% submitted their ballots in the last election, 86% in 2022, 88 in 2020. It's trying to rig the election.
Why does anybody want to go stand in line for hours and hours and hours at a voting booth in the heat when you can just mail in your vote? That's the point of mail-in ballots. By the way, there are people who are handicapped. There are people who maybe are sensitive to being out in the sun for 10 hours a day, waiting in a line, knowing that there's a chance they might not vote if somebody is not letting them get in there. Or maybe there's no water available because in states like Georgia, you can't even hand out water to people standing in line or you'll go to prison. That was, by the way, exposed in a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. That's how fucking ridiculous that law is. The South can be pretty backwards sometimes, and that's putting it lightly. So, yeah, of course, people want to mail in their ballots, and Donald Trump knows by banning mail-in ballots, he's going to prevent so many people from voting. And when people don't vote, that's how you get far-right fascists like Donald Trump winning the election.
He's trying to set up the conditions where he can claim that the elections were not won fair and square. Open your eyes to what is going on in the United States of America in 2025. That's what this is about. We're responding what occurred in Texas. We're neutralizing what occurred, and we're giving the American people a fair chance.
And by the way, don't think that this stops with Texas. Trump is already trying to do the same thing in Indiana. He's asking J.D. Vance to go there and try and convince Indiana to also gerrymander. So now you see the governor of New York saying she might do the same to counter what's happening. So it is going to be this nationwide redistricting fight, which likely will backfire very badly for Trump, who is trying to cheat and may end up losing even more seats as a result, because not only do people see this bullshit and they're tired of it, but people are going to watch as the MAGA far-right movement loses its grip on Congress because Democrats are actually doing what they need to do in their states to push back.
Because when all things are equal, we're all playing by the same set of rules, there's no question that the Republican Party will be the minority party in the House of Representatives next year. We'll be transitioning, and I'll close, from this process that has unfolded over the course of the last few weeks to the campaign. After I sign these two pieces of legislation establishing a special session and the maps, I also will be signing a proclamation on November 4th, the people of the state of California, in a transparent and, as Speaker and Pro Tem said, temporary and democratic way, will have the opportunity to determine their fate in our collective future. And
that's the difference, folks. That is the difference. Anybody who tells you, if you're a teenager in high school watching this on TikTok, by the way, if you're watching on TikTok, I encourage you, come over to YouTube. You'll actually be able to watch the speech on your screen. You can watch on your phone, your computer, etc. Link is in the bio, or just search Josh the Progressive. Maybe you're at high school and your friend tells you, oh, well, the Democrats are also gerrymandering, or they're also cheating, but look at how gerrymandered the blue states are, like California and Illinois. What Newsom is doing is temporary. It's temporary. It will go from 2026 to 2028 to 2030. It's going to be a temporary redistricting effort, and it is not even official. The only way it's going to be official is if the Californian voters decide to vote for this. Meanwhile, in Texas, it's not even going to be up to the voters. The radical, far-right extremists in Texas are just doing it without even allowing the people to vote on whether they want this or not. So you have transparency, a democratically chosen plan in California, and it's a short-term plan. It's a plan that is purely to offset what Texas is doing versus Texas. They're doing it to steal the election for Trump. How's that going to work out for them? Not so fucking well.
I couldn't be more proud, again, of the extraordinary leaders that are standing up for the rule of law, are standing up for the principles and those enduring values of our founding fathers. Thank you for getting us to this point. We have a lot more work to do to get this done on November 4th.
Well said. Now he's going to sign it. Very few Democrats are actually calling it like it is. Trump is hijacking the military as their personal army. He sent ICE agents to Newsom's speech last week in Los Angeles. I was there. I saw them firsthand. They were there purely to intimidate people. It wasn't a coincidence. They weren't rounding up illegals, as people call them. They weren't looking for undocumented migrants. They were trying to harass American citizens, and they were trying to scare people who were simply attending Newsom's speech. That's what that was. Donald Trump is trying to ban mail-in ballots, and he's hinting at using the National Guard and ICE at voting sites across the nation. But boom. Boom. Gavin with the good hair says, fuck that. We're going to redraw our maps in California. We're going to pick up some Democratic seats, and we're actually going to do something to push back against Donald Trump. Someone says misinformation. Nah, brother. These are objective facts. We're simply watching his speech and watching exactly what's unfolding in the nation. You can twist it any way you want. You can try and spin this like Donald Trump is doing something good. But in reality, just take a look at what's happening in D.C. He's literally taking over the military and going against American cities. Looks like Newsom's going to take questions too in a little bit. And I think that's all. And there you have it, folks. So Gavin Newsom just signed the bill that is going to pave way for Democrats in California to try and offset what Texas is doing. And I say try because, again, this is going to be up for a vote on November 4th, 2025. The Californian people will have the chance to vote. Yes or no? Do you want to go forward with a plan to redraw California's voting maps? Yes or no? I encourage everybody living in California, vote yes. This is a big deal, and this is a chance to actually fight for our democracy, which is at stake right now, because even if we do this, there's still a threat that other states are going to try and cheat for Donald Trump as well. And again, why would Donald Trump be trying to look for more seats? Because he knows people are unhappy with the economy. He knows people are unhappy that they're losing their health insurance. They're going to lose health insurance. Nearly 20 million Americans are about to be kicked off of Medicaid. He knows that he added nearly $4 trillion to the national deficit. He knows that he's on the Epstein list. That's the real reason they haven't been released. So, yeah, it's very disturbing, but it's actually good to see Governor Gavin Newsom sign this bill today, and now we can actually push forward with a plan to see real change against the Trump administration. Folks, thanks so much for tuning into this brief edition of The Progressive Pulse. I'm Josh Greene. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone watching on TikTok. Please come watch on YouTube next time. I encourage you. It's a much better viewing experience. You can actually see what I watch. This was a brief impromptu stream today, just reacting to Newsom's speech, but we'll be live plenty over the weekend and into next week as well. My goal is to start doing this nearly every single day so you can stay up to date on the truth and know what's really going on here in the U.S. and around the world. Stay vigilant, stay well, have a great weekend, and fight the fascist Trump regime. Thank you so much.